Some men had just finished work at a certain factory. They were exhausted. A young man bid them goodbye as he walked out. The men wondered what he ate since he never got tired. One of the workers told his friend that he saw him eating vitamins earlier. The young man was walking on the streets, thinking that vitamins were the best when one is tired. The young man's name was Park Haniel. He gets a better effect from getting high on drugs than others. He discovered this attribute when he ate the nutrient supplement his comrade gave him during his military service. Haniel's father was a stable man until one day he told his mother that he was going to make medicine and become a saint. He quit his job and left to stay with his parents, where he consumed mixed medicine and other ingredients, and was carried to the hospital multiple times. Then he left 20 years ago, saying he was going to the forest because the medicine was not working. Haniel went into a store and bought a coffee. As he walked out of the store, he saw a portal that had appeared in the sky. Then the ground started to shake, and people started screaming that there was a hole in the ground. Monsters started emerging from the hole. Due to the coffee he had taken, his energy was supplied. His backbone nerves were stimulated, and his senses and reflexes heightened. He saw that things were moving in slow motion. Realizing that he wouldn't be able to run, he screamed for someone to save him. The monster attacked him, and he decided to fight back. He grabbed the monster's weapon and hit it on the head. More monsters lunged at him, and he beat them all up. Suddenly, a very huge monster appeared behind him. The effects of the drugs wore off. The monster attacked him, and he went flying into a shop. He lit up a cigarette and consumed an elixir to regain his energy. Then he kicked the monster out of the shop. He followed it outside. He finished his cigarette and threw it away. He beat the monster up. When it was lying on the ground, he stopped hitting it and wondered whether his mother was doing fine. The monster got back up and grabbed Haniel's head, smashing it on the ground. When it was about to punch him, Haniel grabbed the fist and then punched it in its chest. The monster collapsed on top of him, and he pushed it off. He then heard people screaming for help. He saw the monsters attacking humans and wondered where they were coming from. Suddenly, someone came flying down from the sky. She used her powers and captured all the monsters at once. Then the person saw Haniel and was impressed that he managed to kill the monster without training. She asked Haniel who he was. The woman asked to see Haniel's hand so that she could assess his potential. Before he could show her his hand, it moved on its own due to her powers. She then realized that Haniel's powers were irregular and could potentially lead to disaster. Haniel thanked the woman, stating that without her help, something bad could have happened. The woman created a glowing ball in Haniel's hands and tossed it into his mouth. Haniel asked her what it was because it tasted bitter. She replied that it was a medicine used to seal the center of his energy, which was necessary to control the demons that could not be controlled. It was the only way to save his life. She also informed him that his powers would one day endanger the world, and although he would suffer, it was for the greater good. Then the woman left, leaving Haniel confused. He drugged himself back to his apartment, taking a couple of drinks to see if his powers would work, but he felt numb. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. He saw an emergency alert instructing him to download a Special Measures 24 app. He followed the instructions and noticed a notification stating that he possessed a spiritual physique and that it would begin analyzing his condition. When he remembered what the lady had told him, he tried to stop it, but the effects of the medicine kicked in. He grabbed another drink and felt better after drinking it. The empty blue energy was an ingredient in the medicine Haniel took. The hangover drinks cured the poisonous effects of the medicine. Due to the remaining effects of the empty blue energy, something started happening to his body. He struggled to find a comfortable sitting position, but eventually sat cross-legged beside his bed. He looked at the results and saw that he had a worldly physique, even though he should have been irregular. He felt relieved because if the analysis had shown that he was irregular, he could have been killed. Then he started watching the news. The president was informing the citizens of Korea about the monsters roaming around the world and how humans were being slaughtered. A chosen few were given a spiritual physique, a power that granted them a lifespan comparable to others. They were called saints, and they sacrificed their lives to close the gates to heaven so that humans could thrive. They continued to protect the gate as humans developed. The president also announced that saints would be patrolling the areas to protect the people. Haniel pressed a button on the screen, and it showed him skills in areas where he could sense heat emanating. He read the instructions and started practicing. It takes time to sense heat in their 3 cores, and with enough training, one reaches a state of non-self, unaware of their surroundings. Haniel took the first step in becoming a saint. When he woke up, He noticed that plants had grown in his room. He wondered how long he had been in his room as he walked into the hallway and saw that it had been 100 days. Haniel noticed that instead of losing weight, he had built muscles. When he looked outside earlier, he saw a huge dome-like barrier, and there were monsters everywhere. The only thing that could open on his notification bar was his information and charm copies, since he had no network connection. He opened his charm copies, and it showed that it depended on the ranks. The highest level charms were given, and the first step was a 9th rank contracting space magic. He was given instructions on what to do, and he tried it out. It worked. The next step was to carry weight to raise strength. There was also a technique called light struggle, but he decided against trying it on the roof as he was afraid the monsters might follow the light and find him. Then he remembered that he had copied the breathing technique. He looked at the bar for the technique training, and it showed that the training was divided from 1 to 10 stars. He could use the tree technique, but the more energy he used, the more expensive it would be to level up. Haniel realized that he had at least 70 years before he could use it. So he decided to check how many stars he had first. He put energy into both his hands and held out his left hand. The number of rings in one's hand represented the star level. Before he could see the number of rings, a monster tried to enter his room. He quickly searched through the bar and found a skill. The monster lunged at him, but he used the skill to absorb the vitality of the beast, which helped him increase his energy. Haniel felt a tremendous amount of energy flowing through his body, believing it should be enough to hold on after using the writhing light. He rose from the ground and noticed sprouts growing on the dead monster's body. He put them in his bag, thinking they might be useful. He exited the apartment and walked into the hallway, telling himself that he had to hold on until the rescue team arrived and that he would have to use the writhing light. A monster lunged at him, but he punched it and ran off to get to the rooftop so he could call for help. More monsters appeared and attacked him, but he fought them off and continued running. When he reached the rooftop, a huge monster appeared in front of him, and the other monsters followed him there. Haniel ran towards the huge monster and activated the writhing light. He threw it into the monster's mouth, illuminating the area. Moments later, Haniel heard someone calling him. He emerged from his hiding spot and saw someone descending from the sky. The superthermal Doist asked if he had a talisman for flying, and Haniel replied that he only had the 3 he obtained earlier. The Doist told him to reach out his hand. Then, a monster ran towards them, and Haniel pointed it out to the Doist. With just a flick of his hand, the Doist killed the monster. They both flew into the air together. Haniel was taken to the safe side of the city. He talked to his mom, and moments later, an officer brought him tea. Then, a man walked in and told the officer to leave. The officer introduced Haniel to the man as the disciple under the command of the unit Cha Hunjin. The man yelled for the officer to get out. The disciple asked Haniel if he had learned the Ascendant technique before the sky opened, to which Haniel replied that he hadn't. The disciple then explained to Haniel that there were 9 ranks of saints: Ascendant, High, Great Mystic, Heavenly, Glorious, Didic, Spiritual, and Earthly. The most awakened ones are the disciples who can't become saints, and Haniel was recognized for his qualifications and classified as an Ascendant. The disciple advised him to do his best for his seniors. Haniel asked about the rank of his master. The disciple grabbed Haniel by his shirt, threatening him to say it again. Haniel showed the disciple his information, and his rank was the 2nd highest high. So he told the disciple to do his best for his senior. The disciple went back to the Doist and informed him about what had transpired. The Doist asked Haniel if he gave him the technique he used. The Doist banged his fist on the table as he rose from his chair. The disciple informed him that Haniel's rank was higher than his. The Doist replied that Haniel might have an irregular physique. He explained that Haniel was born with a worldly physique, but his nature was more biased towards a tree. Meanwhile, Haniel was busy on his computer in a room. He saw that the government had isolated everyone with an irregular physique, but he hadn't been caught yet. He also read about different types of spiritual physiques. When he was done, he started searching for a drug that had a similar effect to the empty blue ball. He came across some seeds and remembered the sprouts he had taken from the monster. Haniel read that the plants he took were called purgatory grass, which naturally grows near the river and is difficult to make sprout. The sprouted ones are medicinal, and when eaten raw, they have certain effects. He noticed that the ones he took were already sprouted, so he decided to practice with the ones that hadn't sprouted yet. The disciple went to Haniel's room, but it was empty, except for a missing peach. Meanwhile, Haniel had planted the peach in the bushes and started practicing his breathing technique. He was surprised to see the tree grow significantly, especially considering he had only been breathing for 2 hours. He then consumed the sprouted purgatory grass and felt effects similar to the empty blue ball. However, the effect suddenly stopped, and he wondered if he was doing something wrong. He realized that a small part of it remained in his abdomen because the empty blue ball was of better quality. He wondered where he would find drugs in this fantasy world. He tried again and noticed that the heat was different. He remembered that the post mentioned that purgatory grass had the nature of yin, while the blue ball had the nature of a tree. He stood up from the ground and carried the tree with him. Suddenly, there was an alert about the Han River flooding and heavy rain. Residents of nearby buildings were advised to evacuate immediately. Haniel entered a building with some other people just as the rain began. Worms were scattered all over the floor. Haniel heard a lady shouting for help, and then he saw a huge bird-like monster behind her. The monster picked up the lady and threw her into its bag on its back. Haniel watched all of this as he started smoking a cigarette to gain energy. He ran towards the monster with the tree in his hand and kicked it, causing the monster to stagger and drop its bag. The lady cried out, and Haniel was surprised by his own strength. Then he realized that it was because of the rain, as it was the tears of the Dragon King. Water made the tree grow quicker and stronger. He used the tree he was carrying to create a demon exorcist blade. The monster then lunged at Haniel, but he struck back with his blade, pushing the monster back. He noticed that there were no scratches on the blade from the attack he just made. The monster turned towards the lady and grabbed her again, but Haniel struck the monster, making it drop the lady. Haniel lunged forward and caught the lady. The monster started chasing them, and as they ran, Haniel dropped the lady and went flying into a wall. When he got back up, he saw the monster flying in the sky. Haniel realized that it would be difficult to use the sprouts against a flying monster, so he decided to use the demon-slaying exorcist blade instead. Since it possessed the characteristics of both a tree and a sword, he used a technique that absorbed the demon's tears, rain, sunlight, wind, execution, and lightning strike. He attacked the monster, causing it to fall. And when it was about to get back up, he used the blade to cut its head off. The people who had gathered outside were now taking videos of the fight. As Haniel stood beside the dead monster, the Doist arrived with his disciple. The Doist attacked Haniel, causing him to fall. He told Haniel that he had just killed Lady Yuwa's bird, and ordered his disciple to drag Haniel away. However, people were still live streaming the event, and viewers from all over the world were supporting Haniel in their comments. Meanwhile, Lady Yuwa was furious about her bird's death. She instructed her servant to tell the humans to set an example, warning that if they didn't want to suffer, they should tear Haniel's limbs off. The servant replied that the young man's record had become a hot topic and hoped that Lady Yuwa would show kindness, as there was a high level of dissatisfaction among the new leadership. The servant also mentioned that they had prepared an attribute to save face. Lady Yuwa took out a wooden block from the Peaches of Immortality, stating that if she could make it sprout again, the name Yuwa would represent the Queen of the West. Meanwhile, Haniel was walking in the streets, and people were staring at him, recognizing him from the video. His blade had been confiscated, but he found a block of wood tied to the monster's ankle. He made it sprout before the Doist could, and then he decided to see if it would grow. A year later, the government announced that they were taking measures to purify the water. A month ago, when the heavenly energy was in dismay, a 1,000-year-old blotched snakehead fish hid in the Han River. It had become powerful enough to claim itself as a god. After crossing over from the world of monsters to a river in the human world, it declared that no one would use the water until its request for human sacrifice was fulfilled. The disciples gathered in a meeting to discuss the issue of the snakehead fish. Yang Giju, a disciple of the heavenly king Nukcha, told Shin Somini, the disciple of Tabek, that there was no difference between worrying about finding a job without being able to afford college entrance fees and their current problem. He mentioned that among those who entered the river to take down the monster, there had been mishaps, and there weren't many of them ranked as great immortals. Giju then stated that he was going to train, and that if anyone could take down the snakefish, it would be the fastest solution to their problem. After his statement, all the disciples left the meeting, leaving only Shin Somini behind. The following morning, Somini went to the forest to wait for Haniel and asked for his help. Haniel ran past her, and she started following him. Suddenly, he disappeared from her view, leaving her wondering where he had gone. Then, he appeared behind her and asked if she was affiliated with the Immortal Society. In response, she threw a phone at him. Haniel asked if he showed her his information. Would that be enough? Somon saw the information and couldn't believe that he was a high immortal ranked lower than she was. Haniel asked Somon if she wanted to use his wood element to kill the monster, and if the immortals wanted the monster to be killed. He told her that he saw their inaction as intentional neglect. Somon replied that they didn't take action because they wanted the juniors to solve the problem on their own. She gave Haniel back his blade when he agreed to help them. At the riverside near Yuanana, one of their comrades told Somon that it was a nuisance to come and see a human try something. She replied that it was all for the Han overlord's slaughter. Haniel, wearing a mask, took out a hyacinth seed and threw it into the river. Somon ran towards him, telling him not to get any closer because it was dangerous. He replied that it was a hyacinth seed, and it was good for purifying water. He took the blade and attacked the monster. The monster told him that it was the river's god and would not obey. It started fighting back, but as Haniel kept striking it, it struck back. As he was falling, he dropped the seeds in the river. They grew, and he landed on a leaf. He then took something out from his sweater and used it to strike the monster, killing it. The area cleared up. Haniel stood on top of the fish monster and took out a crystal from it, claiming it as his reward. Suddenly, some people came running towards him, asking him what he was doing, and they began to chain him. The Heavenly King of Nuchev asked if Haniel knew what he had just done. Someone watched this from the ground. Haniel approached the seniors and asked if they were going to tell them what was safe and what was not allowed. The king asked Somon if she was the disciple of Tabak, and she confirmed it. The Nucha king questioned whether she had any doubts about the guy's identity, considering he used a rare technique to kill a river monster without a master for a year. Then he turned towards Haniel and asked if he had lost his fear. Haniel questioned why he should be afraid since he had done nothing wrong. He also asked if they were doubting him because he might have an irregular physique, mentioning that it had been verified by the app. Haniel further asked if they had planned everything, appearing minutes after the monster was killed as if they had been observing it carefully, creating a stage for him to be welcomed by the public, which he had now ruined. Nucha became furious and attacked Haniel in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. Haniel pointed his sword at Nucha, which seemed to anger him even more. Nucha asked Haniel if he had any last words before he died. Haniel confidently replied that he could never kill them. As Nucha struck, Pongbark suddenly appeared out of nowhere and blocked the attack. Pongbark told Nucha that Yuwa had made a request and warned him that if he started a fight, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. Pongbark then took Haniel to Lady Yuwa, and now Haniel stood in front of Yuwa. Lady Yuwa's servant showed Haniel sprouted seeds of purgatory grass. Yuwa explained that it was very rare for them to have sprouts. They were discovered by mortals who were tracking down black markets, and she wanted to find out who the seller was so she could punish them severely. Haniel apologized, stating that he had no choice since his living condition was poor. Yuwa replied that she had shown him mercy before and that she would do it once again. She told him to work in her garden, which grew trees and grass. Since he was able to grow purgatory grass, he would have a good influence in her garden. Haniel mentioned that he used the sunlight technique, which should only take 2 days to produce fruits, but the purgatory grass had not grown beyond a sprout. Yuwa replied that since he was under her roof, she would provide him with herbal medicine, and he would also have a youngster to help him, ensuring that his powers wouldn't fall behind. Haniel left and Yuwa called Jan Xianbi to ask for her verdict. Xianbi replied that Haniel seemed suspicious, and although she knew he was up to no good, that's why she had requested her to watch him. Haniel's phone vibrated, showing him that his disciple achievement was Mystic Immortality, the 4th rank, but it purposely displayed the wrong level to summon. Then he went and planted the crystal he took from the river monster at the roots of a tree, saying that he brought something for it and it should also give him something in return. As Haniel was practicing the breathing technique by the tree, a small peach appeared from the branches. He was about to pluck it, but a brown bear appeared and told him not to be hasty. Haniel asked who the bear was, and the bear replied that the elder had named him Guanak. Haniel tried to pluck the peach again, but Guanak stopped him and explained that it would be reckless. The energy of the tree was concentrated within the fruit, so if he plucked it, the tree's protection would not work. He also warned that soon people would realize its existence and that there was a person down the hill waiting for him. Suddenly the crowd grew darker, and Guanak told Haniel that they might be coming for the tree. Haniel plucked the peach and ate it. He then resumed the breathing technique. Guanak asked if he felt any changes, and Haniel replied that it was very juicy and fresh. Guanak informed him that it took 300 years to produce the lowest level peach fruit, so a tree grown for only 1 year would never have the same effect. Haniel gave Gwanek purgatory grass and asked him what he could do now. Gwanek replied that he could sell caves. Haniel used the map on his phone to locate the person who was looking for him. He told Gwanek that he would start with the person who was getting closer. He met the person, Yang Giju, who turned out to be a disciple of Nucha. Giju informed Haniel that his master had ordered him to bring Haniel and handed him a 9-tailed fox fan. Gwanek, perched on a tree branch, explained to Haniel what a 9-tailed fox fan was. Haniel questioned Giju, stating that just because Nucha was his master didn't mean he had to cause an explosion in a place full of people. Giju responded that with the energy in the area, no matter what skill he used or how loud he screamed, it would never leak out. He struck with his fan, but Haniel gathered the energy he had distributed to the mountain and countered the attack. Haniel's powers overwhelmed Giju, and as Giju was about to strike again, something happened and he collapsed. Haniel approached him to see what had happened. At that moment, the Daoist appeared and created a fire barrier blocking Haniel. Haniel told the Daoist that it was self-defense and the same would apply to him. Determined, Haniel worked past the barrier and the Daoist warned him that he would burn him and take him to Nucha while he was still breathing. The monsters started attacking him. He managed to block the fires, but the last one hit him in the belly. Since he was carrying the fan, the bear yelled at him to use it by infusing it with energy and wielding it. It didn't matter what element he used. When he used it, the master disappeared. As he was trying to find Gwanek, the master shot fire at his side, causing blood to come out of his mouth and sending him flying into a tree. The Daoist then told him that he would take him to Nuch. All of a sudden, the pain Haniel felt disappeared, and his wound healed because of the peaches of the immortality tree peach he had taken. He used the fan and attacked the Daoist. Haniel collapsed, but Gwanek woke him up and asked him what he had done to make the place full of water. Haniel looked around without replying. As he searched Daoist's body for something to control the barrier, he found a treasure bag. Gwanek told him that there might be other people on their way. Haniel carried Daoist's body and dropped him near the peach tree. Haniel used the Sunlight Wind's execution, absorbing Daoist's body into the tree to create a barrier for the tree. Two guys arrived and looked around for them, but they couldn't see them due to the barrier. Then, Haniel asked Gwanek whether the tree had some sort of medicinal effect. Gwanek replied that he doesn't know, as nothing changed for him. The tree may have been too young, so it had no effect. Then he asked him to show him around. Haniel agreed but told him to give him something in return. Gwanek gave him a goblin's bat. Haniel took the staff from Giju's treasure bag and went to the city. They took a taxi and headed to the garden. Then Jiangbi stood in front of the taxi and told Haniel to get off. She introduced herself and said that she was asked to be his helper, and she told him to follow her. Gwanek had copied a crypto, and he told Haniel that he would have a hard time. Haniel asked if he knew her. He replied and asked him if he wanted to know her weakness. He told him that she likes handsome men, and he told him the story about how she awakened her spiritual physique and how she conquered Jeju Island in less than 100 years. She was known as the Flower One Pick that could reach the heavens and sweep away the whole world. Sure, extinction flower. After she proposed to Moon Donion, he and his father planned a way to kick her out. On the wedding day, she was attacked, and she was the one who lost because she was betrayed by her love. They arrived at the garden. She told him about the 6 gardens in the castle, and the only place he could stay in was the 6th garden. They entered the 6th garden, and he would be the lord of the 6th garden. He asked about the former lord and the gardeners. She replied that the garden had been closed since the last one died 100 years ago. Her phone started ringing. She tried to take it out, but it fell to the ground. After she left, he told himself that he would use the garden to become stronger. Then he took out his blade and saw that it was burnt from the last fight. He plunged it into the ground, thanking it for saving his family many times. He used his technique and grew a tree from it, and its roots grew into more trees. He brought some of the trees to light and told them that they were in charge of the seasoned farmhand duties. As they were watching the trees work, Gwanek told Haniel that for him to invoke the live spirit of the tree, it's a skill that even a high-ranking immortal can't use easily. He replied that he's flattered. After some time, he went into the cottage with the purpose of resting. When he sat down and started doing his breathing technique to get energy, he felt a beat of a plant responding. He rose and felt it again. He figured it could be under the floor. He broke the wood on the floor and they saw a barrier. Gwanek told him that it was a barrier formation drawn with blood. He broke the barrier as well and found a room. He jumped in, and he found a diary written by Park Run, the sixth garden lord, about the atrocities of Lady Yuwa. He wrote that he was tricked into working at the sixth garden. As time went on, he realized his mistake and begged anyone with the art of the earth to teach him. However, his body grew rusty as he got older. A miracle happened when Yuwa bestowed upon him the title of the Lord of the Sixth Garden and the Earth Dragon Art. He started training in the dragon arts, and his power improved day by day. However, he realized that the effects of the dragon arts were excellent, but the power was absorbed by the garden's medicinal herbs around him. He became a living fertilizer. If someone could break the barrier, they should burn the pavilion and leave with the stolen treasure, which was the Mandragora ginseng. Haniel realized that the beet had come from the Mandragora ginseng, not a seed. He tried to make it grow, but it sent him flying across the room. Meanwhile, Yuwa was visited by the shrine master, who came to collect their treasures. She heard that they had the 7 branch blades shaft at their main palace. Lady Yuwa asked if it wasn't handed over with the blade. The shrine leader replied that it's also what they knew until now. King Junshogo was about to give the sword to the Heavenly King, but the one carrying it met a natural disaster and died. The blade was delivered to their country. Yuwa asked him what the interrogations were all about. She replied that she would like to propose a celestial fight in 6 months. They'll let the blade of the 7-branched sword, and if they win, they would only take the shaft. Lady Yuwa agreed and added a condition. 6 months later, some people went to check on the 6th garden. One of them told Haniel to show some respect to his seniors. Haniel introduced himself to Liang, the leader of the group, and showed them his immortal rank. Told Haniel about the celestial fights, and he asked Ung if he would be at the match. He replied that he would. Yo was having a meeting when a lady walked in and told her that the Lord of the Sixth Garden came to find her. She told him what he had said. Gochuol got furious that Haniel challenged him. They agreed. Gochuol was face to face with Haniel, ready to fight. They started fighting, and Gochuol asked Haniel if he thought he was going to stop his attacks with his leaf shield. Haniel attacked him with his sunlight wind execution. Chuol felt that his powers were being absorbed. Then, Shiganbiek interfered and stopped the fight, saying they won't lose a child when the winner was already apparent, declaring Haniel the winner. Lady Yuwa asked Haniel what kind of training he had been doing for the past 6 months. He replied that it was a special martial art, and he knew that she brought him to grow something. He could grow it and never betray her. Then he asked her if he could go outside for a while. She replied that he was to be escorted by Danbyuk outside. Danbyuk and Haniel chatted as they walked. They came across a group of humans protesting that human sacrifices were murder and should be stopped. Suddenly, it became dark out as a figure appeared from the sky and started attacking the people. Danbyuk told Haniel to protect the people. Haniel took out the fox fan. Yinsene told Haniel that she didn't expect to find him in that place. Haniel felt her energy and told her that she was one of King Nucha's agents. Then he asked if she was close to Biju. Sene replied that she would make him pay for his crimes. Haniel replied that she's the one who has to pay for her crimes. Sene released some shudderwocks and told them to tear the limbs of a man who killed her husband. Haniel saw that she was no match, so he decided to use the non-tailed fox fan. He smoked the mandragora, and trees started to grow from the ground. He used them to kill the beasts. She told her followers to release more shudderwocks and catch him. Haniel attacked her with the second-hand smoke, and she fell to the ground. Diuk grabbed the Heavenly King of Nucha, Sine's father. Nucha asked him if he knew who he was. He replied that it didn't matter who he was because he had committed an imperishable sin against people. Nucha told them that due to their nosiness, he would leave no survivors. He started absorbing the dead bodies and the strength of the living. Diuk told Haniel that he was the incarnation of the blood Maitreya. Then he borrowed Haniel's sword and told Nucha that as a member of the immortal realm, he would take responsibility and enforce the punishment. He attacked Nucha. Yuwa watched the news as Diuk and Haniel stood in front of her. Diuk apologized for causing her indescribable inconvenience and said he wouldn't avoid whatever punishment she gave him. Yuwa told Diuk that his actions were not wrong, but scolded him to be cautious. She also mentioned that Haniel should prepare for discipline. Diuk went back to his garden and started reading some books. Wanak told him that it was Yi Du's handwriting. He was named Sigjong after his death. Haniel asked if he had done something wrong. Wanak asked what he was talking about. Haniel replied that it was because of the Yu family that he looked like that. He read the story about King Sion the Great. Haniel was practicing some skills, making fire with his voice. Wanak walked out and asked why he was playing with fire in the middle of the day. When he saw what Haniel was doing, he asked how someone who couldn't even make fire without him found a way to create one. Cheonbi appeared, and he asked her why she had come. She replied that she heard he was entering the celestial fight. She handed him something, and he asked what it was. She replied that it was a scripture they gave her to give to him since he was entering the celestial fight. He asked who, and she replied that it was a sage, his father. He asked where he had met her, and she replied that it was at a place called Shefu. He's married to a princess of Huanam, and he had written something of vital importance. He opened it and saw a sealed mystic bamboo fan. She told him that it would suck up most evil spirits if he's inclined to use it. He replied that he would use it. Hours before the fight, Deok went to Haniel's garden to ask him to help him make Mampasik Chok. They planned to take advantage of the celestial fight and sneak into the second garden to collect the black jade bamboo. Haniel agreed to help. They went to the second garden and Deok called Karmi, a horse. They hopped on it and went to the floating island. They encountered monsters along the way. Once Haniel hopped off, Deok told him that he couldn't go on the island due to the intruders. Haniel ventured deep into the forest, searching for the black jade bamboo. He was attacked by big green lizards. He knew it would be hard to break through, even though he was using both the mandragora and the invocation of proper sounds. He decided to use the Dharma. As he used the bamboo fan, a mystical brown bear appeared from the fan and started helping him kill the lizards. The lizards ran off. Haniel and the brown bear climbed up a tree and saw that they were heading towards a rock where the black jade bamboo was located. The brown bear insisted that Haniel go inside and roast whatever was at the top. Haniel sent the bear, and it started killing the lizard monsters. Suddenly, something attacked the bear, making it yell at Haniel to get him out. Haniel saw the creature, and the bear told him that it was the Hate. The older it gets, it should have lots of training so that it adapts well. But seeing that it couldn't go against his tactics, it seemed like it hadn't even learned the basics. Haniel used the fan and trapped the bear in the Hate. They returned and Haniel saw that Deok was bleeding. He told him not to worry. Then he took the centimani and gave it to Haniel as a prize. They were at the island where the match would take place. Foreign celestial realm observers appeared for a fair evaluation, and each representative invited high-ranking sages to fulfill the presented conditions. The representative of Siva and Odin swore not to make fake judgments and to protect the blade of the seven-branched sword and the treasure. Haniel's resonant response to the branched sword. When it got out of its case, Odin grabbed it and apologized for causing a disturbance. Haniel was relieved that it became silent after the sword shattered. He grabbed it, otherwise, he could have been caught as the one with the seven-branched sword scabbard. Li Un was the first opponent to the Yin and Yang Master of Japan. Un was beaten up, but he didn't give up. Li Un lost against the Yin and Yang Master of Japan. Lady Yuwa told Haniel that he should thank Young because they could create a stage that could make him shine brighter if he wins. She also mentioned that even if he tries his best, he won't be able to stand out if he loses. He replied that he will just have to win. Haniel went in to fight against the same Yin and Yang Master. He attacked him using the space folding technique and won in a flash. Cheonbi scolded him for running directly at that guy without any defense. Deok argued that it was a bold move, and it shows just how fearless he is. His next opponent, another Yin and Yang Master, told him that she won't be an easy opponent. She made puppets, but Haniel saw this and made the live trees destroy the puppets. Haniel won again, and then a true deity sage from Japan became Haniel's next opponent. The sage threw blades and destroyed Haniel's live trees. He threw the blades at him. Haniel told himself that he should use another method since the deity was of true rank. He summoned his brown bear, and it asked if he got hit. He replied, pointing at the deity, that he hit him. Then the bear started fighting with the deity. It spotted the deity's weakness and used fire to melt his armor. When he was about to end it, Haniel yelled for the bear to stop attacking the true deity. He used the distraction to his advantage, employing the iron melting technique, and trapped the bear. The brown bear told Haniel that he needed cold energy. Haniel released the Hate, which helped free the bear from the trap. Then the deity told Haniel that he gave up. The shrine leader told them that the event was arranged to reach a peaceful agreement with each other, not to put the lives of young sages on the line. Yo replied that they would also give up. Then she told Haniel that she didn't know he had such talents. He replied that if she had told him earlier, he could have made the show look much better. He would take a seat, and Shinampi told him that he did a great job. Then the ground shook as they were announcing the next opponents, and the three sons of the Dragon King appeared. telling them to surrender the seven-branched sword and the shield. When Haniel saw the representatives grabbing them protectively, he yelled that he would throw them all into the sea. Amidst the chaos, Haniel thought he should take advantage and steal the seven-branched sword. When he saw the sword case, he used the resonance, and the sword came to him. He grabbed it and got out of the water. Will he manage to keep the sword, or will it bring trouble for him? Only time will tell. Stay tuned for the next part to find out. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.